So Ira, tell us a little bit more about accountability and how accountability plays into managing your finances.
It's a great question, and we've been already talking quite a bit about accountability. The bigger issue is figuring out how to change your behavior. Because what we're talking about, this is the Zen of saving, and saving is actually developing a new behavior and what we might call a new habit, and we might call it a positive habit. So how do people do that? First step is accountability. Accountability in the context of what we're doing would be the system to track your spending. And that way you can look at data, hard data, no value judgments, and see whether you're spending more or less than you're earning.
Because that really is the hardest part, right? Is the actual looking at the numbers. Tracking it couldn't be any simpler. It's putting numbers on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet or in a calculator. It from a data standpoint could not be easier. It's the value judgments
I'd say
with what we see with the data.
It could not be simpler, but it's not easy. And the proof text for it not being easy is most people don't track their spending. And most people don't want to do it. And it's not a task that we run home and say, I can't wait to track my spending for the day, except for you. You are the exception that proves the rule. So the rest of us have to exercise and create a system that's going to motivate us and almost force us to take responsibility. So accountability and tracking your spending leads you to taking responsibility for your spending. Since we have so much trouble estimating our spending just off the top of our head, taking responsibility says, I'm going to look at what I'm spending and I'm going to say that that's my responsibility. And by doing that, you're gaining control of your spending. You're taking responsibility and gaining control. Until you take control and responsibility of your spending, it's not going to change. Same with savings. Savings requires you to take responsibility and set goals that are longer term, short term and long term, and start saving money for those goals. In fact, you can even title savings accounts to your goals. If you have a goal to buy a house, you can set up a savings account and title that account Home Down Payment.
Home sweet home.
Home Sweet Home.
Yeah.
You can set up an account for your travel budget. If you find that you're spending a lot of money on travel and it's eating into your ability to save, you can deposit money in your travel account and spend only what's in that account when you travel and no more. That way, you're limiting the amount you spend on travel to what you can afford. And that allows you to free up other funds to go into savings. Now, without the accountability tools, without taking responsibility and taking control of your spending, and you know this already, those of you who aren't doing it, money issues could feel like you're back into a corner and like you have no choice and no control.
You're stuck.
You're stuck, and there's nothing you can do about it. So the purpose of this course is to give you control of that spending.
It's like the client I was telling you about. She does report her spending into me every month, and I'm her accountability partner in that.
You're like the principal.
I am. I'm like the school principal, and she comes with her numbers every month. And it's really great to see the months that she's delayed, because she can write these thoughtful, heartfelt emails about how she's experiencing resistance, because she inherently is starting to learn how she is spending more than she makes each month compared to her goals, why saving is so difficult because she's spending more than she would like to, or she thought she would be the type of person to spend less. And I tell her that resistance is actually really good. You want that feeling. You want to be becoming more aware of how much more you're spending each month than the person you think you ought to be.
And she earns a very good income.
Very good income. It's at all income levels.
So it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter
how much you earn. Your image of your ability to control your spending versus the reality can often be a shocker. And getting those aligned actually acts to give you control over your spending. And accountability can start with yourself. The challenge in regard to that system is you need something else to help yourself do it. And what we've talked about is tracking your spending.
Right.
That's the tool that gives you the ability yourself to be accountable. Ultimately, what you want to do is form the values and responsibility internally so that your spending is driven by what you need and what you want, but stays within the means that you can afford, and including all your savings goals for the future.
So accountability, you're saying, always starts with yourself.
Right.
Beyond that, there are ways to use accountability to really accelerate your goals as well.
Talk about that.
A good place to start, we've mentioned before, starting with your life partner or romantic partner.
Like we do.
Like we do. Building a partnership with someone has a financial component, and it's a great place to start to challenge each partner to meet the financial goals that you jointly set.
If you're single, you start with yourself and you start with the data. And even if you're in a couple, you start the same way.
Yep. And even if you're single, you can expand to if you have a housemate or a roommate or a friend circle. These are other areas you can start looking for an accountability partner.
And examples of how that system works would be things like Weight Watchers,
Yes.
which has a group accountability system,
For weight management.
and it happens to be the most effective system to help you lose weight. 12-step programs work to help people and provide support and accountability for those who are engaged in 12-step programs.
And Ira, knowing what you know and what we've talked about in terms of technology and all the various different accountability groups and people out there on the internet now,
Social media.
has it ever been easier to find people to help you be accountable? I mean,
Well, I think this class actually is a great example of an opportunity to find collaborators and group accountability. So it works pretty well.
like-minded, people on the same track, wanting to save.
Right.
Yes, yes.
And just another quick story. I have a client whose income is quite high, and he contacted me.
Were their savings high or they had a savings problem?
They were not saving. They were spending more than they were earning, but they had savings that they could draw on. And that's good and bad. If you have that ability to draw on savings, it provides less motivation to control your spending. But he knew once he put together his spending, he knew it was out of control. He was so upset that he was losing sleep.
That's common. That's very common. It's a good sign, actually, if you aren't sleeping well, as
Right.
a good place
It's
to
a
start.
motivator. You know that person's going to come in motivated to get their spending under control. So actually, the solution was gathering the data, and when he saw it, that's when he lost sleep. But when he came into me, he hadn't shared it with his spouse yet. And my recommendation, of course, was share it with your spouse. And he was pretty convinced that he could go home and share it with his spouse and that would have an impact. And sure enough, he did it. And they were able to cut their spending in half. She just had no idea how much she was spending. There were no guardrails. There were no constraints. She did not pay the credit card bill.
So they weren't maliciously trying to spend beyond what they had each month.
No.
It just happened.
It was just kind of ignorance and the inability to take responsibility if you don't know what's going on. So it's very possible that it could be easier than you think. It's a pretty simple process that has a number of challenges. And I think we've dealt with most of them so far, and now I think it's a good time to summarize.
Absolutely.
In accountability and responsibility, the easiest person to go to is yourself for motivation. You need to have a system to work with for yourself. However, if you have other people to work with to hold you accountable, for instance, your life partner or your romantic partner or a roommate or a close friend, someone who will keep you accountable, who will hold your feet to the fire. Humans are more motivated by avoiding negative consequences of loss rather than a reward. If you have the option, this is really clever and interesting, and I know it's being done, pre-write a check to a charity which you would not in your worst moment think of contributing to. For instance, if you are an advocate for gun control, write a check to the NRA. but only send that check to the NRA if you don't meet your accountability goals.
Or have your accountability partner send that check.
Or have your accountability partner send it in, since you might not do it. Also, you can use technology to help you as well. There's actually a website that allows you to form a group of accountability partners for any number of changing habits and changing behavior goals, and it's stick.com. That's STICKK.com. And it makes it easier to find somebody who can hold you accountable if you utilize technology like that. Oftentimes, the closer you are to reaching your goal, the easier it is to fall off track. So sometimes it helps to hire a professional to help you as well. There is value in keeping you accountable.